Thank you very much. Is Fact TV ready? Okay. We are in the auditorium of the beautifully renovated Bellows Falls Middle School. It is January 29th, and the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board will come to order. And I would like, beginning with Josh, if we can just walk down the table and introduce ourselves.
My name is Josh Aberman. I'm the board recorder.
Rick Holloway, Rockingham School Board.
Ow!
Oh, it's just your bottle.
Your turn, Deb.
Deb Wright here, Bellswell High School.
Jessa West Clark. I'm from Grafton and the Union Elementary Merger District.
I'm Jack Dreyer, and I sit on both the Bellows Falls Junior High School Board and chair the involuntarily unified Westminster Athens Grafton District.
I'm David Clark. I represent Westminster on the Union High School Board.
Chris Pratt, Superintendent.
Brenda Farkas, Bellows Falls Union High School.
Liz Morgan on the Athens Grafton Westminster Board.
Charles Chase, I'm on the Athens Grafton Westminster Board.
Molly Bannock, Westminster, chair of the high school board.
Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. I have one, which is to add real estate to executive session. This is ours down here, though.
It is.
Okay. All right. I'm going to see if I can use this. Before we get into communications and public comment, of course, that's I'm sure the reason that many of us are here. I'm hopeful that if there are any questions which need answering that do not appear on our list from last week, that we could get some early hands and add those. Otherwise, I expect that when we get into Superintendent Pratt's reports about steps taken since our last meeting, that may also be an appropriate time to have some back and forth. So, communication and public comment. Just quickly, is there a statement tonight from the association, or should we just take hands? All right then. Is there anybody here who would like to speak? Well, all right then. Let's go right down to unfinished business. Reports and updates from the business office. Item 4A is update on payroll matters. Superintendent Pratt.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out again. I think we were together a week ago at this time. So there's some updates I do want to share with everybody. I've shared most of them with most of everyone through the website, my blog, different areas through email. But going down so far the list I have, I'm just going to start at the ones that I have put out there and got answers to. First one is, how is the Northeast going to calculate lost interest for 403B accounts? Well, following the last week's meeting, I reached out to Ameritrade and I asked them to provide us with a sheet so I have a understanding period of what those losses look like for any of you within the 403. I so have not received that yet. In addition to that, I sent a formal letter to them requesting, from my standpoint, I need to know exactly what went on that took place with the 403s. And at this point, like I said, it doesn't matter to me who was in the fault, whether it was Ameritrade or my office. I need answers so I can sort it out and make sure that we put things in place that doesn't happen again. Like I said, I sent that out the 23rd or the 24th, I believe. You can find that on the website as well. So I'm still looking for a response from Ameritrade on that. How will lost interest for 403B accounts be recouped and how? Shortly put, the lost interest will be paid and it's not going to be at the employee's expense. That's why I want to get the figures from Ameritrade, exactly what was lost and who lost what, so we can start working on that. When did the central office become aware of the issue with the 403B accounts? The office is my understanding, found out about it in November and was working with Ameritrade. Full disclosure, I found out the Wednesday of last week before this meeting, so there was a little lack of communication there. I'm not saying to point blame, but I'm just saying, look, we all know that's something we have to continue to work on. And it goes back to the other question, why is there a discrepancy between the information provided by TD Bank and the information that's coming out of the business office? That's what the letter was for, because I'm in the middle hearing both sides of it, and I want the answers to why and how this happened. Because if we don't get those answers, it's going to be really tough to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I'm hoping through some kind of correspondence with Ameritrade that we're going to have answers in regards to what did take place. Any questions yet? Good. Like I said, the letter that I did send to Ameritrade, I did publish that on our website, so you can take a look at it, so you can see the information that I'm looking for as a superintendent. What will be done to ensure substitute teachers are receiving the correct pay for the correct hours? Like I said last week, is that until we get a web-based time track system up and running, and I know from speaking to a lot of you, before I got here, there was a system bought. Why it was used, I do not know. I could not answer that question. But for myself, moving forward, we've got to get in, not to the 20th century, but the 21st century, because there should be some sort of automated time clock system in place. What I found when I was looking into this, because in early on when I was noticing that substitutes or even people who are paid hourly, I was looking at the sheets and figured that the amount of times that those sheets change hands, before it even leaves the building, it could be up to 4 or 5 times before changing hands before it even gets up to the SU office. And for me, that's where it can go wrong in regards to, you have people relying on those timesheets to get paid, and they're switching hands that many times. Something inevitably is going to happen. So I did go through and I worked and I streamlined the process as much as I can, so it's switching fewer hands and it's getting up to the central office at in a more efficient way, and so they're not being lost. I think moving forward after July 1, I've already priced out some systems and had demos of systems that we could get for the time clock, including the current one we have that would need to be updated. But there are some out there that are also very specific towards the education side of the various times in and times out that a lot of employees have, which is very unique compared to the business world. So I am looking into that, and after July 1, I really want to work on instituting that and getting people trained so we're not up against this problem again. Yes?
Would those time clocks be compatible with your software?
Yes, the one I'm looking at is it does talk to the Power School and the e-finance. That was something that I not only wanted it to talk to it, but I didn't want it. I wanted it to be very user friendly. You know, so I did get a price on one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head because I've looked at so many, but it'll be compatible. It can be, you can use portable devices to use it as well. And so once it's in there, it can just be sent over to the e-finance system. Because right now it's like, with the paper sheets, during the Industrial Revolution, they had time clocks, for crying out loud. I mean, we gotta catch up to speed to that, because once we have the time sheets, you have, before they leave, the person doing them is calculate them, and then once they get to the central office, they gotta go calculating all again. So on top of everything else, it's very time consuming. Current staffing of the business office. Like I spoke to last week, currently the business office is fully staffed as of January 14th. I have already, the other day, we know that Edie Lou Cole, the current business manager, is retiring. So Teresa Taylor will be taking over her position as business manager. And so I posted the staff accountant position So I would like to get someone in there sooner so we have the time for Teresa to work with the new accountant. And then also when that accountant's in there, then she has time to work with Edie, so there's a smooth transition in regards to the business office. So we're well underway, far before even the summer gets going. And we'll definitely be underway for the fall. It's important to have a transition plan so we don't run into some of these problems again. So that's where we are currently with the staffing. That job has been posted. I checked before I left. I don't have any applicants yet, but I'm going to remain optimistic on that. Yes.
The last time we were together, what came up was that there was one person that sort of knew how to do everything, and then that one person left, and that left a big hole and made it really challenging. And my question is there more than one person now in the business office that can understand and use the software so that going forward, if that one person is out, there's still other people who can fill the hole?
Yes. Yes, there is. We do have, like I said, when this all started, we were down one person. The person we have come in, they've all had to work together, so cross-training has taken place. They've all needed to pitch in and work together in regards to understand the new systems and the chart of accounts. So to answer your question, it's yes on both ends. Yes, we have a full staff, and now we have more than one individual in the office understanding the systems. The last one I would talk about, and one of the big things that came up last week was, how do we know that moving forward, the stuff that's being done is going to be done accurately, especially with W-2s coming out and everything like that. So I tried to move on that as quick as possibly. Today, I had an independent person come in, and they started working, looking into the business office, doing the interviews, to find out the hows, the whats, and the whys that need to be done in that office for it to move forward. Because what is important for me to know is that if there's something, what we need to adjust and fix, whether it's our procedures, whether it's, what are we missing on our end because of what's been happening. But I want, just like all of you, that independent voice coming in, looking at it and saying, okay, this is where you had legitimate concerns and it held everything up. But on the other end, these are areas where if you address these, this wouldn't have happened as well. So I want the same answers all of you have. She started today. How long she will be there? She's going to be there until you get the answers I need to move forward to fix these problems so they don't happen again. So that's what we currently are as of from last week. There's been a lot of movement. I've been trying to be as transparent as possible with all of you and get emails out there to let you know what's going on, because it is very important for me to make sure that this problem is fixed and we move forward together. But once it's fixed, that it's going to be done, it's going to be done correctly, so we're not going down this road again. I want the same answers you guys do, and I don't think any of you have ever heard me give an excuse for anything that's happening, and I will not do that. There is no excuse for what's happening. All I can do is continue to push forward and do everything I can to make sure that you guys are getting paid, and you're getting paid knowing that it's done accurately. So, thank you.
Chris, let me just ask, are there any questions from the board? Okay.
Are there any other questions from the public?
It's Brenda, is it?
Last time we were here, I asked a question about communication, and I have another question about communication, or asking for a clarification. The business office is in the same building as the superintendent's office, so I think for myself personally, it's very annoying knowing that all those parties are in the same building, and yet there was no communication between the superintendent's office and the business office until, as you said, January 22nd, and this all started in November. So what is the problem with being in the same building and not communicating, that it took so long for people to find out in that building that there was a problem? And in addition, it wasn't communicated to the employees who it was directly affecting. That bothers me and it worries me, and how are you going to fix it?
Well, you know, like any of us, we're in positions where we're supervising a lot of people. For me, it was a lesson learned that I have to ask the right questions, figuring that, that's pretty much what it came down to. I figured I would, information that I had been receiving was going to be timely and it was going to be accurate, and that wasn't the case. So I know moving forward, I've stepped up and I need to play that bigger role to make sure that I'm asking the right questions. But a lot of times, I'm not an expert in everything that needs to be done, and it's learning the right questions to ask. And I think through this process here, I definitely, know the right questions to ask in regards to make sure that communication is happening. Because, you're right, there was a breakdown in communication, there was a lack of communication, and there was inconsistent communication. And so moving forward, why it took place, all I can say, a lot of it, that's going to be on me because, I wasn't asking the right questions in order that I thought I was asking to make sure that people were being informed.
Brenda, Jack Breyer would also like to respond to your question.
I spent a fair amount of time, as does Rick Holloway, marching up and down the 2 floors that separate the superintendent from the finance office. It's a locked door. There's at least a couple of people that have mobility issues. It's not as easy as you might think. I would point out to you something that I think is important because I was there for some of this. During November was the first time, as some of you will recall, that the e-finance system crashed and burned around everybody's ankles. And there were a lot of things that were being dealt with at that particular moment, like where's everybody's paychecks. And it's obvious that this one fell between the cracks, but I would at least ask for your understanding that the first task was making sure everybody got paid during that period. And if there wasn't communication about some of these other things, that might explain why. I'm just telling you from the perspective of somebody who was there. This was just not, I don't think, on people's radar.
I appreciate that you took all the blame. You're taking the blame for not communicating, but I think there needs to be something with the business office that's also communicating it. Because they very well could have said, there's a problem. So it's not, am I making sense? You can try to do better, but they need to try to do better too. There needs to be something set up so that they're also communicating.
Sean?
So I appreciate that you took action and brought in an independent auditor to look over things. I'm curious if that's going to be publicly shared or shared with teachers or shared with the board. Unfortunately, this whole situation has really shaken my trust in the system and the accuracy of anything that's happening. And I used to blindly have my direct deposits go in and whatever direct withdrawals taken out and not pay too much attention because I trusted the system and I knew if there was a problem, Lori or Susan would catch it and tell me. And this whole system or this whole event, it just kind of word of mouth eventually led to looking at various things and it took, like you said, from November. I think January 10th is when it occurred to me to check the 403B, and that's when a few of us in the math department looked into it and spent a lot of time on the phone and figured out that that was not being paid either. So is that something that we're going to be able to see?
Sean, I'm going to respond to you on that. When we were in this room last week, I said that there were issues which were personnel issues where we have very limited room to discuss them. And then there are policy issues which are really a matter of the public's right to know. And with regard to your question, what we are talking about here really is a policy issue. Obviously, the efficient functioning of the business office and the superintendent's office in general is very much a policy matter, and that is something that will receive a public response.
All right, thank you.
And Sean, in addition to that, I think that's, for me, that is the ultimate right there, is getting things in place, getting the right people in, so we can rebuild that confidence that needs to be had in my office. The first step is having this independent review come in and look at everything. If we need to go further and have a very focused audit that needs to be done and pay the money to do that, that'll be looked at as well, and we'll do that. For me, we can't move forward until we've reestablished that trust and knowing that things are where they should be. And it's going to take a little while, I understand that, but I'm going to continue to get the right people in so we can get back to where we are. Because you're right, you shouldn't have to know, if your paycheck's right, or your W-2's right, or if the 403's in there. I understand that, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we rebuild that trust, and that moving forward there are things in place so nothing like this happens again.
You have the microphone, Denise.
And I have a question, David.
Let's use it.
So my question is, besides the 403Bs, has there been any indication that the VEMRs have not been taken care of?
No, it's my understanding that they are taken care of.
From who?
Yeah, the Vermont Retirement Fund. Okay, so as far as
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
my understanding that a follow-up from after last week's meeting, I did get email saying that all was all set and it all went through.
Thank you.
Molly, got a hand?
You had mentioned the delivery of W-2s, and I'm wondering if there is any sense of a timeline on the delivery of those.
From last week's meeting, they need to be out no later than the 31st, and that's what the plan is.
And how can we say accurately that they're just going to be what they're going to be?
I can't, I like that, with everything going on, I can't say it at this point. Like I said, I'm not in the business office, but based on the questions I've been asking and what I've been told, and the way they have the system up now, and the work they've even done since last week, working with the e-finance people to double check what they're doing, it's my understanding that they should all be accurate in regards to even some of the concerns last week. If they were, paid with a written check, how was that put in? That stuff has been put in, so that will take into account for that. But at this point, I'm not willing to give anyone a 100% guarantee on anything, and I wish I could.
Brenda?
Then what do we do if they're not? Because last session, you said if we have a problem, to come to you, go through the channels. So I just want to make sure what those channels are, because as of last week, I was still confused about the channels. Do I go to you? Do I go to my principal? Do I go to the board? And how long do I wait if I don't get the answers I feel I need?
I want the emails, just like I said last week. And as long as I'm in the area and not out of the area, even if I am, I'll make sure you get an answer by the end of the day.
And a follow-up question to that is, there are people who have had issues with their pay that is not going to be reflected in the 2019 W-2s because the pay was received in January, or still it hasn't been received. I'm not sure about that, but I know that it was not received prior to the 31st of December. So will those payments be the 2019 or the 2020? Because that could be really a problem for people that I've spoken to in terms of their personal finances when they do their taxes, because the money was earned in 2019, but it's being reported in 2020.
Brenda, I think I can answer your question based on my years of experience as an employer. At the end of the year, I was frequently facing a situation where some wages were earned December, the last week of December. Some of those wages were earned in the first week of January. That was always on a following year W-2. So even though if we can use the example of 2019, 2020, if there were 3 days wages in December of 2019 and 2 days wages, probably only 1 day's wage in January of 2020, that would be considered 2020 income. And I just want to make 2 other points here very briefly. Number one, there is a strong, shall we say, onus on employers to generate accurate W-2s on time. If the W-2 is not issued timely, then the employer is subject to a penalty. And you can well imagine that this school board and the supervisory union will do everything in its power to prevent a W-2 from being issued late. In a situation, and I've been in it myself, where a W-2 requires correction because it's inaccurate, the IRS very strongly encourages you to issue a corrected W-2. It's my personal expectation that we're not going to see it in the WNESU, but if we do, that's how the situation is addressed. And I hope that answers your questions.
But what if the pay was not done in December? It was like somebody's expecting and waiting on a November payment. That's totally different, am I correct?
I am not, and I am not an accountant or a payroll manager, so I don't have a direct answer to your question, but my belief is that if the payment was actually rendered in 2020, it would be considered 2020 income.
Shouldn't it be when the money was earned,
Right.
not when it was paid?
I've had it happen to me. I don't know about the end of the year split because the pay period does, but I've had to receive back pay the next year or even 2 or 3 years later, and it comes in as that year's income.
Do it. We're done now.
I'm sorry, personally, I've received back pay.
Turn it on, Jessica. Just slide that over. Switch up. There we go.
Okay. Personally, I've received back pay that's been a year or even 2 years later, and it is counted on the year I've received it. I don't know about the payroll split where the pay period overlaps the end of the year. I don't know how that works out. Edie might be able to answer it. While I have a microphone, though, I do have a question. Are we getting a payroll audit or an independent review of the accounting practices or an actual audit?
Independent review at this stage.
I think your question is not directly on our list of questions. It is pertinent, Brenda, so hopefully Josh has it down and we can get you an answer for that, maybe even by the end of the week. Written, check the website. Are there?
Mr. Chair, we have some questions.
Okay.
Hi, Kelly Green. My question is related to actually something you said. If we do have to have a corrected W-2 and have to have our taxes redone at a fee, who's paying that fee for your mistake?
Brenda, who would you like to have pay that fee? That's not a totally facetious question.
To me, it's not my fault, I guess would be a good word, that I have a wrong W-2.
And I would say my office would take ownership of that and make sure it's paid.
And then my other question goes back to what Denise said, and I actually have lost it. I sent an email out Saturday morning at 3:30 to all of you from Dan French saying that, in fact, our state retirement is not correct at the moment. Has it been corrected since Saturday?
Yes, that's what I've been told.
Okay, thank you.
So I sounds like maybe, and I don't remember all the questions, but some you were able to come up with answers for and some you weren't. I was curious, I know that there was one added late about life insurance, and Edie kind of sent me a response that I didn't fully understand, and I was just curious if you had any input on that.
That particular question that you sent to Edie, I couldn't elaborate on. I don't know enough about the ins and outs of the health insurance to the question you were asking.
Mike's coming around the room here.
Is it life insurance or health insurance? Life insurance. Life insurance.
Hi there, my name's Amanda. I've been subbing in the district for like 8 years, and I'm about 2 years on para now. I never questioned my paychecks before, so I foolishly was not 100% on top of keeping copies of my timesheets. I've gotten much better about that. But since all this has happened, I tried to go back and review my timesheets, my hours worked versus my pay stubs. And I am missing 2 weeks, and I tried to contact the office to find out if I could get copies of my timesheets so that I could go through thoroughly and make sure, because I did find some mistakes in my pay. I have not been paid for certain hours that I have worked over my contract. And the response that I got was that I have to come into the SU and make an appointment to get copies of my timesheets so that I can assess myself. And so my question is everybody that's having an issue having to make an appointment to come in to resolve it? Because I don't have time. I've got 3 kids. I rush home immediately from work. I don't have time to go to the SU to get copies of my timesheets so that I can fix what's wrong. But I kind of have a feeling that if I point out the aspect that me going over my pay stubs would actually probably benefit you guys because I have been overpaid, perhaps then I would get some better access to my timesheets.
I would like to say that, not being part of the conversation that we had with the business office, that I don't see any reason why they couldn't be collated and sent to you.
I would agree with that. I'm willing to come to the SU to pick them up, but I don't want to have to spend an hour to retrieve them.
Just send me an email, I'll have them collated. If I have to do it myself, I will.
Are there other questions or comments? Board?
I have another question about our 403B. I checked this morning and I have no deposits for December, but I have 6 deposits in January. And I thought I understood last week that the deposits were going to be made individually so they could be credited to the 2019 year. So I'm just wondering how that stands.
From last I heard, they're still currently working on that right now as we speak.
Who's working on it?
Who's working on it?
They're working with the Ameritrade to get all the 403 stuff continued to sort it out and put in the right place.
Can we give them a time? Can we have a time limit? So, like, the business office isn't like just sitting around waiting for Ameritrade to call, and Ameritrade probably got a few other things to do besides us. I mean, are we going to have a time limit? Because This was November to January before we found out. I personally do not want to have to wait till July 1st to find out that, oh yeah, they finally went in. I mean, there's got to be a time limit here. We can't be waiting forever. I don't think, anyway.
Brenda, I just want to point out that Chris Pratt has queried TD Ameritrade in writing, has not gotten a response. So to a degree, we are working on TD Ameritrade's timeline and not entirely on our own. But I'm going to pass the mic over to my board colleague here, Jack Breyer, I think also wants to respond to you.
I'm not sure I do. Here's the thing. We've all sort of figured out that there's an upload function in the software. That was the same that was related, at least, to the upload function that screwed up the payroll. And it didn't, when that malfunctioned, it didn't notify anybody that it had malfunctioned, which is why payroll upstairs and everybody was running around with their heads cut off trying to figure out what on earth had happened, and we're doing small manual runs to get everybody paid. Now, I've worked and consulted with folks like Ameritrade in past years, and if a account manager has an account like this district and fails to get paid for months and doesn't call and say, gee, where's the money? Because the money was actually there, but they weren't seeing it because there was a transfer issue because the software was screwed up. Some of it might be on us, yeah, but I would say the bulk of this is really on Ameritrade. They have account execs whose jobs depend on making certain that they hit their monetary targets every week. There are people that are paid to go check to make sure that all the money is paid to them that's due to them. That didn't happen. Now, I'm willing to have us take responsibility for the fact that we didn't go through everything and say what else is broken when we found out the payroll system was broken. But there's a partner here, and the partner is going to have to own some of this too. And I think that I'll just ask your patience while we get this worked out. But this is not something that was just on us. It really isn't.
Two hands, Molly.
Jack, to follow up with that, so I understand that Ameritrade has account executives to do that. Does the federal government and the IRS, I mean, I'm not real sure that my federal taxes have been paid. How about the state taxes? Do they have an account exec who is looking to see if those uploads have happened? I'm not real sure. I went on to Social Security and the data has not been transferred yet from last year. For Social Security. That was as of Saturday when I checked. But I don't know what the time limit is. I don't know what the deadline is for that to happen. And I wasn't able to check the IRS because I don't have an account, so I'm in the process of getting an account. But I'm not real sure if those taxes have been paid. How do we find that out?
I think one of the things you do is you have somebody who's been paying attention to ask a question to us and say, hey, in the list of things that didn't get uploaded, if you check X and Y, I think that's a great question and one we're going to have to follow up on. It's the first time that it's come up, but it's an absolutely legitimate question to ask because now that you mention it, I'm wondering too. We'll have to find out.
Because if 403 didn't get done, FSA didn't get done, problems with health insurance, I mean, you're looking at every deduction, every upload function, every deduction is a suspect at this point.
That's one of the reasons why we have an accountant in as a consultant to walk us through all that. And I was there today, and the consultant was there, and I believe that's what they're busy doing.
I do appreciate all that you all are doing and all the time you're putting in on this, but I keep hearing that the system is broken or the system has exploded or the system is down, but none of these problems happened when Rhonda was here.
Yes, they did.
Well, none of the things that we're talking about happened like this when Rhonda was here, so I guess I'm just commenting that I think it should be on the record that it's not just the system. Right. There's the personnel
change that has caused it. And I think when we're talking about losing trust in the system, I had total trust in the system when Rhonda was there. So I think it just needs to be said.
Those IRS uploads that may or may not have happened, or may not have happened as far back as November. The Ameritrade stuff you're talking about.
After November 11th.
Again, you know, so we have this whole list of things that were not happening and may not have been happening for a while. We're playing catch up. I'm not going to get into personnel because it's not fair to the individuals, and I don't want to cast aspersions because that's not fair either. But let's just assume that when people make decisions in their office, running their shop, they do so for a reason, and I think it's only fair to let that drop at that point, because otherwise, I would hate to have my employee record discussed by dozens of people when either I'm present or in front of me even.
Oh, I understand, and I just want it to be on the record that it's not just about the e-finance system. I just think that's important.
Julie Sines. I have a question about the liability of the software people. And I'm here as a 43-year employee of this district, but also as a lifetime member of this community. And I'm wondering what is going to happen in terms of the tax rate if we get, as a district, have to pay an awful lot of money to make things right. And you're saying that it's the fault of imperfect software. And are they going to own any of this imperfection?
Try and get out in front of your question a little bit here. One of the reasons that school districts have insurance besides property casualty is also what's known as errors and omissions. And I hate like heck to put this on the camera, but I guess it's what's going to happen here. One of the things about our insurer, which is the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust, VSBIT, is that if we suffer a loss which is caused by a third party, VSBIT will cover us for our loss and then perform what's known as a subrogation against the third party who is responsible for the loss. We're getting way ahead of the ball game here in discussing this, but what I am telling you is that I believe that irregardless of whether a loss has occurred because of negligence in the WNESU or whether a loss has occurred because of negligence elsewhere, I believe that we can make a claim to our insurer, which would be honored.
That does put a little more information out about the tax rate in Rockingham if we were to absorb all of the costs of this stuff. Thank you.
And, you know, I'd like to kind of add a little bit to more what I was saying earlier. It's like, I personally have never said it's been all the system. And we do take responsibility for our part. But as superintendent, I got to know what our part was. When we're dealing with so many different systems and programs and people, that's what I need to find out. I need to find out where that lies. Because it's not all the system. And, it goes a lot deeper than in regards to where we are right now and how we got here than people imagine. But it's not just the system. That's what I'm struggling right now, is trying to find the same answers that you guys want. How did this happen? And how much of it is on us? How much of it is on the system? How much of it is on Ameritrade? I don't know, because everyone's telling me something different. And that's what I want to get to the bottom to. Until we can continue to keep saying, who's at blame and who's to blame and who's going to take ownership of it, we're taking ownership of it, but in order for me to sort this mess out, I need answers in regards to why the problems are happening that are happening. And I have not gotten a clear answer when you're working with so many different third-party entities.
There are additional hands.
One of the things that we had mentioned before was the co-curricular pay being paid not consistent with the contracts that we had and being paid last year when they were supposed to be paid in January, and also paid with our regular salary, which very much then changed what we received. So I'm wondering if you've looked at a procedure for that to ensure that that does not happen again, because that very much changes my income from last year to this year, because I've had extra co-curricular pay on 2019 that should not have been there.
It's one of many things that we have to continue to look into to get those answers. So it doesn't matter what the pay is, people are expected to get paid at a certain time. And so hopefully with this third-party independent in the office, some of the things they're going to look into is procedures, process, and what needs to change so this does not happen again.
Are there other concerns that we should be discussing?
So as this third party, I don't want to call it an audit, but consult, whatever, goes on, and as those answers become available, will we be provided those answers as they become available, or will we have to wait till the very end to get all answers? I would think that we would get them as soon as you know the answer to a few of the questions. Those are put out just like you put the answers to these questions from the last meeting. Because if we have to wait till the very end, my fear is that we're going to have people who leave because of, they find different jobs. Time's going to go on, and as time goes on, and it doesn't become a forefront issue, I don't want it to just go by the wayside. I think we deserve those answers as soon as you get them, even if it's not, the list isn't complete yet.
No, I agree. I want to get the answers to all of you as I get them. And I think holding on to them isn't going to do any of us any favors. You need to know that we're working on things, and if we're not giving you answers, it's going to look like it is falling by the wayside. So Brenda, I agree with you 100%. As I get the answers, I know we're going to get a final report, but I'd like to get answers before they go to final report. And even if they're not, all brushed up, at least you know what we found out thus far.
Anyone else? David. Oh.
Any of you who read the Reformer article probably noticed I had a comment in there, and that was that I wanted answers. I didn't want to see spin. For me, it's very important because as I know it's important financially for you, but as a trust, as having faith in the central office, that as a board member you anticipate that things are going smoothly, and then you find out all of a sudden it wasn't like that. And according to people who have commented to me via email over the weekend and into this week, it's been a lot longer than the last few months. It just hasn't affected as many people. And that would mean on the old system, not just on the current system. So there have been things that have probably been going along for some time and affecting some people in small or in whole or in part. And they've just snowballed to the point we are at now. I want answers horribly bad. Maybe not quite as bad as you, because financially this is impacting you. For us, it's a matter of trusting the people that we were elected to support the budgets and build the budgets and make policy over on a regular basis, and it shakes us to the very foundation of we just passed a budget that we're going to be passing on to you. I want to know that those dollars are going where they need to go. And at this point I am trusting that Chris Pratt will get the answers that we need. And to me, if consultant isn't enough, we do need a forensic audit. We need to know where it was and where it came from, so we don't do this in the future. We have to find a path forward for all of us, because we have to believe in this, in what we're working at, for you, for your jobs, for your money, and for those of us who want to remain elected board members.
Is there anyone else with a concern or who would like to comment? Rhonda, I see your hand up. Why should I Molly give you the mic? I think easier down here
So
where
we can all hear you.
I have diminished hearing.
You do as well, Jen?
I'd just like to say that I was fired because I was unable to get payroll done in the new system and make the new system work efficiently yet. No matter how hard I tried to get the payroll done, I could not meet the imposed deadlines that were given to me. And yes, today the newspaper did indicate a dollar amount in regards to overtime. And as people are well aware, I did work a lot of hours. And even though I worked all those hours and got paid, some of them I got paid for, some of them I did not. People know that I worked sometimes around the clock. And I enjoyed my job, and I appreciated having a job. And when the payroll system wasn't working, then the business office received notification that if payroll was late, someone would be fired. So there again, there goes some more overtime because I needed to assure that I could get it done on time. And I also would like to express all of the gratitude for everybody here and anybody that has shown me support through the WNESU. A lot of employees have stepped up and showed how much they appreciate what I've done in the past. So thank you.
I'm going to recognize Jess, and then we'll move back up.
Good enough?
Red light.
Red light's on. You just turned it off.
Can you hear me?
No, you had turned it off.
Red light.
Yeah, the red light.
All the way up. Oh, there.
All the way up.
There.
The red light's broken.
Yeah, well, what else? There you go.
Now it's on.
It's off.
I do have a question to be added to something for administration to look at, and I'm trying to carefully word this. Have we compared our experiences with Power School's eFinance Plus with other entities that are using it, including the 3 early adopters in Vermont? How much have we availed ourselves of the independent documentation and training available from Power School compared to what the state is giving us? And have we considered using the Power School resources for training outside of the state system? I'm kind of wondering if anybody's been able to quantify, maybe Ricky, the IT director, can answer if we have more of a problem with incomplete and buggy software, or if we also have a significant training problem.
The answer to your question is both. When this initially came out in the state, it said this is the software we're going to, it's mandated. I believe that was probably 2 years ago. I know I was still superintendent in Wyndham Southwest, and they were looking for initial SUs to get on board to almost like pilot the system. And I believe at the time there were probably, I think, 12 different SUs who came on with Wyndham Northeast. And within a short time, it dwindled down to 3, Wyndham Northeast, Windsor Southeast, and St. Johnsbury. And what we saw is that with anyone who comes on the initial stages of a new program, is that the training that was given or being provided for this new system was all through videos, 2-hour videos, and it really wasn't answering the questions because with the software being buggy, the training videos weren't answering the questions. They had to figure it out on their own. Anyone in the office was trying to figure out how to navigate the software based on videos. And you know, anyone who's you try to figure things out on your own, sometimes you're gonna make it worse before it make it better. And so, yeah, there were a lot of initial adopters, but you know, they bailed all except for 3. And since then, for the people in the SUs, Wyndham Northeast being one of them, is that by the time they got to the second level of bringing more SUs on board, they had the training changed significantly where people were actually getting bodies to train people at the SU office. We started to see that in November. So to answer your question, there was both. We utilized the training that was offered to us as much as possible. But when you don't have bodies on the other end to assist you in that, in the first, you know, I think they started the initiation before I even got here for the new system, is that if you can't get answers, you can't move forward. And if you're trying to fix them on your own, sometimes you're gonna make it worse. But since then, the state has adjusted how the training modules work. And there's actually people on the other end of the phone, and there's actually people coming to the site to work with business managers and business offices because of all the, I'd like to believe it's because of all of the issues that came up with the 3 remaining SUs who stayed on with e-finance. And as far as the training, you know, since they've adjusted the training, yes, we're using it on a regular basis through phone calls. We've had people come down, but that really didn't start until November, late October.
Hi, Crystal Morse. So if you finally had somebody to come in and train personally, why didn't you have that happen when Rhonda was there? Why did you wait till November when you'd already let her go?
State didn't have access to the people on the ground doing it. It was all based over computer and videos.
But you said they came at the end of October, beginning of November. You let her go November 6th. Why didn't you let her have some training?
It's a personnel issue, but the training that was going on in the office when Rhonda was present, it was long, boring, non-helpful videos that people were trying to figure out the system. We really didn't have anyone come to the office either around the time Rhonda left or shortly after that. Okay. It's not that we didn't try. We were asking for help and we were not getting it.
Okay, so how long do we let this go on before we fire the next payroll person?
Wait.
I'm not going to answer that because now we're getting into personnel issues.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be confrontational, but the only training we availed ourselves of was what the state provided. We didn't go directly to Power School for documentation. They have Power School Academy, they have independent learning.
It's a different program.
Yeah.
It's eFinance Plus.
It's a different program though. They own the company, but it's a different program. It's Power School and eFinance. Power School is a student-based data system. eFinance is not.
But I'm saying if you go to Power School's eFinance site right now, you can order independent learning. Why did we not consider that?
We did not have that available.
What does Ricky, they've had it available. I looked a couple months ago.
You know,
I'm wondering what
I would appreciate these questions prior, not during.
Okay,
It's an ambush.
I'm not trying to ambush you, and I'm not expecting answers right now. Maybe we could have our IT people take a look at it.
No, I'm just saying I'd appreciate board members asking the questions prior so I have the answers to you, not during, where I'm being put on the spot.
Fair enough. I'm not expecting an answer right now. Thank you.
Crystal, you have indirectly raised a question that we need to address, obviously. And Josh, do you have the question, which is sort of an amalgam of Jess's observations and Crystal's question?
Yeah.
I'm confident I do. Okay. Give it back to us, would you?
Yeah. Crystal was asking why there was not training made available while Rhonda was employed in the business office. And Jessa was asking why the SU did not avail themselves of all the training that was provided, not just by Power School, but only by the state.
Not why didn't we avail, why didn't we look for additional training?
Are there other questions or comments? Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Okay. So once again, thank you for turning out. I anticipate that we will be meeting again in the very near future. I hope that you can be here. We have a discussion and action question. I wanted to put this on just so that we know where we are here. And that's the update on the superintendent's evaluation. I believe that it's in your hands to review. Chris, where are we now?
I reviewed it and I got back and I was comfortable with what was being
Put on the mic, would you? Just so that everybody can hear that.
The board came up with 2 different evaluations, and I reviewed them, and you know, I felt both of them were reasonable. I am open to it. I want it to happen. Everyone needs to grow in their profession, and I look at it without these type of feedback, you know, you can't grow. So I was appreciative for the board taking the time to come up with the 2 evaluations that they'll be sending out.
Okay. We're going to have an executive session. There are a couple items here that we will do here in open session before we do that. One is agenda items for next meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just read an email that came from someone today regarding this meeting, just to put it on the record? It is from... Oh, sorry. Oh, that's all right. Andrea Carlson, guidance counselor at the high school, sent me this email saying, I am not able to attend the meeting tonight because I am planning on attending the presentation on vaping that the WNESU is doing at the high school at this very same time. She says, if at all possible, can you make note of the conflict, especially given how many staff members are also parents? I understand they cannot find a time that works for everyone, but I would think they would avoid a night when the WNESU is already doing an important presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess just to ask that for future meetings, if that's could be considered.
Thank you. Well, it's obvious that we already have accumulated a few agenda items for the next meeting. Are there any other agenda items from the board? Okay, well, we have a protocol. Get them into the chair, get them into the superintendent, we'll get them addressed. Comments from the board.
Rick? I'll go first, and it's more of a request. The Rockingham School District has 2 open seats on the board, and I believe no one has pulled a petition for them, and I would support, encourage, and help anyone that you may know that wants to run as a write-in candidate to sit up here and help us solve these problems, because we can use all the help we can get. So if you know anyone out there that might be willing to join us, have them get in touch. And thank you all for coming and speaking with us. It really, you know, it's tough sometimes, but we won't solve it by ourselves, so thank you.
Deb.
Only that I'm anticipating that by our very next meeting of this sort, that we will have a lot more answers and a lot more settlement on this. Thank you.
Jeff?
No, thanks.
Jack?
We're a small town, and we're actually a collection of very, very small towns. And sometimes it feels like these are meetings of families more than they are of just neighbors and friends. And I just want to make certain that when we have sessions like this, we remember that people's salaries, their overtime, you know, I find that really, it makes me very uncomfortable when this type of stuff becomes part of the public record. It's kind of like having everybody go inspect my washing to see if I did a good job. And I want to sort of ask everyone, when we have discussions of this type, to be considerate of people's privacy, the sense of perhaps feeling a little wounded, And I just want to make certain that we remember that everybody here is working to the same goal, that we are kind of all neighbors and we are all kind of family, and let's try to make sure that when we have discussions, we remember that.
Charles, comment? Lynn? Brenda?
I'm all set.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. We will keep you posted just as quickly as we have information to post up. Thanks. I'm going to look for a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of a real estate discussion and a legal matter. That motion, Jack?
That is my motion.
Okay.
You anticipate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.